verse 1 and 2 finished in circumcision and how it does profit the Jew because they hold the oracles or utterances of God that was reported in the circumcision that I just did study. For verse 3, for what if some did not believe? Now, some reason this jumps to a new subject. And just sometimes the Bible does that. And I don't know why. We have no context of why it jumped to this subject. It just did. It's almost as if this letter was in response to the order of questions that were asked. So we may not have the question that was asked. So we have to try to figure out what context Paul is speaking of. For what if some did not believe? All right, so this is in your group. What if some are unbelievers? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect? What is Paul asking? And what could Paul possibly be referring to? Now, in the chapter of Joshua, chapter 7, you will read where a certain person has not kept the utterances or oracles of God. And Joshua sends his men out into war and they're defeated. They're utterly just fall on their knees shaking. So we can take this subject and kind of understand maybe what the people in Rome are asking. Because of one man, all Israel had failed. I could see this is how Paul is opposing this question, or they have opposed this question to Paul, and so he's fixing to address that. And in verse 4, he says, God forbid, let God be true. Wait a minute. How do we have in one instance, in one circumstance, where one person brought destruction, but in the next incident, let God be true? So there must be some kind of differences that Paul is speaking of. And that difference is you can read of in Ezekiel 18. No more is the whole group responsible for each other. But in Ezekiel 18, the Father is not responsible for the Son in his actions, and the Son is not responsible for the Father in his actions. So the Son doesn't bear the Father's sins, and the sins of the Father the Son don't bear. They are each judged by their own doings. We can take Ezekiel 18 and suggest that this is what Paul is speaking of. God forbid. As the whole group, if some unbelief is within the group, does it make the faith in God null? No. And that's what Paul is getting at. We're each and individually judged. So let God be true, but every man a liar. Why is he saying every man a liar? There must have been people around them that was saying, if you have any that are in unbelief around you, you're defeated. as it is written, that thou mayest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art just. So there was a way of overcoming. It was through faith. Now, verse 5, Paul is going to get into unjust and how it is very weird. Now remember, this is the first time that these people have heard of this concept. I've always heard the concept if you have evil around you, you're not going to make it. Verse 5. But if our unrighteousness commendeth, that means brings, brought forth, the righteousness of God, what shall we say? So it was the need of a Savior, the need to show that we are not perfect that brought God. It was the sin itself that brought God to us. And it's true. Man needs Savior. And even people at this time know of a Savior that has been spoken of. God unrighteous, God's unrighteous who taketh vengeance. Paul is not speaking literally. He is saying, I'm speaking as a man. And this would offend many people today that God has unrighteousness. But Paul is saying, suppose God has unrighteousness, who taketh vengeance. I put Job 40, verse 8 as a reference, but I really couldn't find any reference that really brought this out. Is Paul speaking as a man? But let me read Job verse 48. And he's speaking to Job here, by the way. Will thou also disannul my judgment? Will thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? So Job went through a lot of hardship, and it said Job is a righteous man. And a lot of things happened to Job, who is a righteous man. Could we call that unrighteousness of God? No, because it made Job a better person. It was the pruning of God that God had put on Job. Look at also the statue that Job grew in his troubles. He received much greater things. So, verse 6, God forbid, for then how shall God judge the world? So, God is not unrighteous. He is most righteous, even when it seems unrighteous, or this ain't right. It is always the right. Verse 7, for if the truth of God had more abound through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? Paul is going and referring back to the subject that is in 3 and 4, that each person is going to be judged upon their own deeds and how they lived. See, there's a change. This is how they really live. As we be slanderous reported, and as some affirm that we say. So all the day long they were slandered for being unrighteous and lawless. Let us do evil, that good may come, whose damnation is just. Now that's the outlook, appearance that people have in Paul's teaching. What then? Are we better than they? No, in no wise. For we have before proved both Jews and Gentiles that they are all under sin. Now he has not injected Christ, and he was going to soon. And in chapter 1 and 2, he has proven both, no matter how well, how good anyone lived, whether it was Gentile or Jew, They were all under sin. They were sold to sin, as he will get into. Okay, so verse 10, as it is written, so they should know this, there is none righteous, no, not one. So they had their rest in the law, and the Gentiles rest in their good doings. They were good people, and that was law unto themselves, yet there were no good people. And Paul was bringing this forth. So I wanted to just try to bring an understanding to chapter 3, and you may disagree, but that's okay. God bless you. May this help someone. And if it does confuse you, please don't watch.